Welcome to the podcast. Today I have with me Denny Krahe. He is the Chief Everything Officer at Diz Runs. He has a podcast called Diz Runs Radio, running, life, and everything in between. Welcome. Thank you for coming on today, Denny.
Oh, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. I talk about running a lot, but I enjoy my dogs as well. So it'd be exciting to kind of blend my worlds today. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's exciting to have you on because as I've done in previous episodes, I think we have this picture in our mind of our relationship with our dog. And for some people, it's running with their dog. And you do that. You're a runner, you have a dog that you run with. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So gosh, time flies when you're having fun, but it's about 8 years now that we've had our dog. Is a German short hair mix. I say boxer is what's also in there, but everybody's got their own opinion. Something with a more square nose, but she's got the color pattern of a German short hair, so you can't argue that one. But when my wife and I at that time, we had an American Bulldog who was a great dog, but not exactly a runner. And so we were having that conversation of expanding our family, both human family and potentially the dog family situation. And I wanted a dog that I could run with, because it's a great way to give them exercise. And just like, I could have handled another dog that wasn't a runner, but it was just, hey, we got the opportunity. Let's take our time and look and find the right one. And so we found our dog Baily. And I mean, from the start, she was a year and a half at the time. And as anybody with experience with dogs that age know, just full of energy, especially that type of breed where, I mean, just needs some energy release. And it was just perfect for us to work together. So we adopted her, and she kind of took over the alpha role of the dog pack, which was fine. Old Tank was just like, whatever. He didn't care about anything. But we brought Baily home, and I mean, from day one, she was my running partner, and we've hardly slowed down since. It's been a great 8 years, and I don't know how many more years. She's starting to slow down now. So at least from a running perspective, health wise, she's still good, but she might not be my running partner for too much longer, but we're going to take advantage of as much time as we still have left, for sure.
And so when you knew that you wanted a running partner in your dog and having that companionship, it seems like you knew that you needed to pick a dog that could handle the running. What did you look for?
Yeah, I mean, I was keeping my eye on the adoption page at the local SPCA, and just kind of, I didn't have a specific breed in mind other than something that I knew could run. So whether it was a cattle dog type of a dog, or some type of hunting dog, obviously the German short hair pointer type of hunting dog, something that could be out and go for a while, that wouldn't get too big to where the size of the dog could be a limiting factor for how far we would run. And I have a bit of a personal bias against really, really small dogs. Not that I dislike other people's small dogs, but I just, for myself, would rather have at least a little bit of a bigger dog. And it's funny because Baily's about 40 pounds, give or take. And sometimes I'm like, gosh, she's just a little bit smaller than what I'd really like. And then you get other people that are like, my gosh, your dog is so big. And I'm like, oh, I mean, no, she's not, but whatever. I mean, so we were open to a variety of dogs. I again, kind of have a preference for somewhat shorter haired dogs, where if they're going to shed, at least it's not quite as big of an undertaking as some of the longer haired breeds out there. But again, that wasn't a real deciding factor. It's just when we saw her and took Tank, our other dog, to the SPCA to kind of meet and how would they get along. That worked out well from right off the bat. And I took her for a little run through kind of the parking lot, and where our SPCA is, there's a little bit of space, a little bit of like kind of nature trail that they walk the dogs on and whatnot. So ran with her through there a little bit as a test drive, and everything was lining up. So this was the one, and it's worked out well.
So it seems like you kind of knew that if a dog couldn't be too big and the dog couldn't be too small. They had to be able to run the kind of miles that you run a week. Mm-hmm. And when you got Baily home, how did you start running with her? Did you build up? What was that process?
It was a little bit trial and error. Probably not exactly how you would draw it up. But we got her on a weekend, and like Monday or Tuesday, there was a run I was doing with a running group in town. And so went in, took her in with me. It was at like 5:30 in the morning because it was the summertime, and I live in Florida. So of course, if you're going to do much running, you want to do it before the sun comes up for most of the year. And where we were running, it was in town. It was around a lake that's about a 3-mile loop. And I just kind of said, I don't know what she's capable of, But if we get to the point where she needs to stop, like the worst I'll be is a mile or a mile and a half from my car, and we can walk that and we'll get back to the car and we'll be fine. And so we set out, and actually what that particular workout was, it was like 12 minutes. Like once we did like a little mile easy warm up, which again, it's all relative. Like for me, a mile easy warm up, whatever. For some people that might be the whole workout, but for us that day, it was about a mile easy warm up. And then it was like 12 minutes. You ran as far as you could. And then at 12 minutes, you turned around and ran back. And so it was like a race to see who could get back to the starting line first. And so again, I said, well, we'll just see. We'll see what happens. If she can't, if she stops, if she gets too tired, if she doesn't want it, like whatever, we'll figure it out. And that dog was pulling me for the entire 24 minutes, had no interest in not running, had no interest in me being even with her, had no interest in me being ahead. I mean, she was, just in heaven. She was loving it. And we got back to that starting line, and there's like a dog water fountain there. And so she was happy to get a drink. But then as soon as we started the little mile cool down back to where our cars were, she was right back to out in front, pulling me along. And so for that first day, we probably ran 5.5 miles, and she was just off, just loving it. And again, I mean, that was kind of like the eye opener of like, all right, well, this dog, she's going to give me everything I want and more as a running partner right now. So, let's get after it. But that was our inaugural run. And it surprised me, honestly. I didn't think it would go that well. And it really did. Just was fantastic.
But it seems like you were really open to watching her and seeing if she gave you any signs of, hey, Dad, slow down.
Right. Yeah. And I kind of kept waiting, like, because she was pulling me at the beginning, maybe not pulling me too hard, but definitely out in front. And it's kind of like, all right, well, when is she going to start to lag? When is she going to start to falter a little bit or run out of breath or start to get hot or whatever? And I mean, never. So we just were tuned in and it worked out pretty well that day.
Because I know for me with my dogs, if I have to pay attention constantly so I don't trip over them, because my big dog is totally unaware of anything around her, of her spatially. And I have almost gone down a few times. It sounds like that wasn't a problem with you.
Yeah, I mean, we meshed pretty well, and there have been a couple times where the leash gets a little twisted up, especially when there's maybe a narrower walkway or trail, and there's other dogs, and you're trying to give them space, but also trying, and it's just it's something that I've kind of figured out over the years to just maybe at that point, like, slow down a little bit, like ease your pace, maybe even just walk until you pass by. Lessons learned the hard way after going upside down on the trail, once or twice with the dog and tripping over. And she looks at you like, what do you do? Why are you on the ground? Like what? And whatever. But yeah, it's and it's part of, I guess, maybe our years of running together is we've really gotten into a good vibe as far as she's on my left every time. Like, and even when we walk, she's on the left side. So it's just that way she's not in front of me. She's not under my feet. We just kind of have a vibe of this is where she is. And obviously when we're just walking or when we're running I'm on the sidewalk, she might be in the grass. That's fine. But she's always on the left side. And then it's funny because every once in a while when there's another dog coming, and it would make more sense for her to be on the right to just give a little bit of extra space. Like she won't do it. Like it's programmed. Like I'm on this side, Dad. And so then we have to both get way off so that there's plenty of space. But I suppose that's a good thing. It's just, It'd be nice if she could figure out like, hey, just in this 1 second, go off to the right. It'd be conducive.
That's a real instinctual thing in some types of dogs to be on the left. I don't know why it is. I had a dog. She was always on the left. That's where she was. I wanted her on the right. So I really get that. And now when I walk my dogs, and if they're on the left, I don't veer. I make everybody else move. So it seems like you negotiated any problems with other dogs while running. How did you do that?
I guess, part of it is maybe a little bit of experience. Part of it is just, I guess, as a dog owner, and maybe not so much with Baily, but with Tank, who is this American bulldog, looks like this big tough. Of course, anybody who has those types of dogs knows that they're more teddy bear than they are anything else. But like, people would get so nervous when you'd see him coming, and they'd be crossing the other side of the street and whatnot. So, as that's translated with Baily and our running together, it's just being cognizant of other people, always looking out for situations that and not that you can prevent everything from potentially cropping up, but if you see another dog coming and there's room, like give everybody room. It just makes the process easier. If you can, most of our runs are in our neighborhood, which is it's kind of a subdivision situation where we can get about 6 miles in our neighborhood without ever going out on the main streets. But when we're running at 5:30 in the morning, it's pretty quiet. There's not a lot of traffic. So we just run on the road all the time because, it's safe to do so, and always obviously be on the lookout as well. But that way, when some of the folks that aren't runners, but they're walking their dog at that hour, they're on the sidewalk, we're in the street. Again, plenty of space, plenty of opportunity to avoid conflict or avoid confrontation. So maybe it's being proactive, maybe it's just being aware, however you want to call it. But that's really helped us, I think, to avoid more situations than we would have otherwise if you're just kind of lost in thought and running along, and all of a sudden, there's a dog right there, and not that it would be a problem, but maybe it would, and maybe it wouldn't be my dog, but it would be their dog, or maybe it would be my dog, but we just avoid it, and that's easier than trying to solve a situation once it crops up.
Yeah, I think being proactive when you're out walking or running, especially with a dog, it's the best thing to do. It's definitely the best piece of advice to give. So you say that Baily runs with your wife. Is that, and I know being a woman, I wanted a big dog because I wanted people to be afraid of my big dog. And if my big dog's protective of me, I wanted them to be a little bit of afraid of that. Was that some extra, I don't know, an extra bonus for you getting Baily?
It certainly helps. My wife and I's running dynamic is interesting in that when we were dating, she was the runner and I was the guy that would go along with his girlfriend to go for a run once in a while. I didn't really enjoy it, but hey, she wants me to go run, like we'll go run. And then, somewhere in the early years of our marriage, it kind of flipped. And now all of a sudden, like I'm the one that runs all the time, and she's getting more back into it a little bit more now. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly a little bit to that. And I don't know that it was like a big deciding factor, but again, it's kind of one of those just nice little extra bonuses. And for her, again, like our neighborhood, I can't speak to what it's like to be a woman out running by yourself, of course, but like, she's not really that nervous in our neighborhood, but on the weekend, sometimes she'll go out of our neighborhood a little bit. And so when she does, like, she'll do it without the dog, but if she has the dog, again, it's just that one extra little layer that, and it's funny to hear my wife tell it because she's just like when I run with the dog, like the dog's paying attention, but I don't think she feels like she has to be on duty as much. But when she's running with my wife, she's like, man, her ears are they're perked up. She's just paying attention that much more. So, not that anything's probably going to happen, but, there's that few extra seconds of notice that, there's somebody coming or there's a random squirrel that you might want to pay attention to, or whatever it is. She's working more when she runs with my wife than when she runs with me. We're just out running together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely a distinction it's real and it can be made for sure. And Baily, she's been with you a number of years. Has she ever experienced an injury that you've had to deal with?
Nothing major, thankfully. The one injury, certainly running related injury, but even, I mean, probably just any injury really that she's had, was one of those that, kind of bad dog owner is really what it probably boiled down to more than anything else. And it was in the early days. It was when we had first gotten her. And for some reason I overslept or whatever it was. And we started our run, not in like the hot of the day, but it was probably 8:30, 9:00 in the morning, something like that. And the sun was out. And it would have been, July, August. So it was plenty warm, but it wasn't like, I was like, oh, it's not that much warmer than it would have been before the sun came up. And we ran and it was just in the neighborhood, a little bit of some speed intervals, but nothing too crazy and nothing that seemed like it was bothering her at all. Like she was, again, out ahead the whole way, not slowing down, everything was good. And, again, paying attention, like, do we need to stop? No, we're good. Everything.
Yeah.
So then, we get home and, she's laying on the cool floor in the air conditioning, trying to cool off. Everything was fine. And, later that day, kind of noticed she was limping around a little bit. And I said, oh Lord, what did I do to my dog? Like everything was fine during the run with what happened. And so then I'm, starting to kind of poke around. Is it a shoulder? Is it an elbow? Is it a joint? Like what is it? And, long story short, you get to looking at the pads of her feet and they were just kind of like blistered up a little bit, torn up a little bit. That apparently the blacktop was a little bit warm enough at that point that, and we were running hard enough that day that it just didn't resulted in some blisters, some hot spots on the pads of her feet. That thankfully, I mean, a day or two she was fine, like they were completely gone, but she was even walking fine later that night. But it was a couple of days off of not running.
Yeah.
And lesson learned that once the sun comes up, especially in the summer months, like she's not running at that point. Like I need to get up early. And if she's going to run with me, I need to get up and take her out. And thankfully, knock on wood, we're, I don't know how many 1,000 miles later and haven't had any issues at all. Although I say that, and then yesterday, as we're recording this, yesterday we were out running, and we came off of some like I was on the sidewalk course. We came off of she was in the grass onto the blacktop, and she was like limping a little bit. And so it's like, what, like, and we weren't going fast, and the sun wasn't out. Like it was like, what is going on? And so I don't know if she had like a little twig in her, whatever. Stopped for a minute, walked for a second, and she kind of settled back in, and then we started easy jogging, and she was fine. So, and totally fine today. So, kind of one of those little fluky things that thankfully wasn't an injury.
Yeah.
But again, knock on wood, ever since that one day, whatever it was, 7.5, 8 years ago, she's been healthy as a horse. And so we'll just, lean into it.
Yeah, because when you're out running or walking your dog, looking at that, and sometimes you can't tell that it's an injury when you get home. But even though you live in Central Florida, it's not just a Central Florida thing.
Oh, no.
In
Yeah,
Colorado,
absolutely.
even in Montana, it can get those warm summer days on that blacktop suburbia. The heat doesn't always escape as well. And so it's something to be aware of. And those thorns in the paws, there was this path that I would walk my big dog on. She'd always get a thorn in her paw. Eventually she would just stop, put up her paw, have it feel it, pull out the thorn.
Yep. Good to go.
We continue on our walk. And so it's good to keep an eye out. It seems like you're a very aware kind of dog owner.
I try to be. I'm I always have room to learn and grow, which is why I'm, certainly glad to have found your podcast and enjoy listening to it. Because I feel like even though, I've been around dogs my whole life and have owned dogs now for whatever, 15 years, about something like that have been my dogs, not just my dogs when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But there's always things to learn or things to refresh, things that you forgot that didn't apply to the last dog, but might apply to the next dog. So, always trying to learn a little bit more, but yeah, just paying attention. Cause anybody who has dogs knows that they tell you that, not in as many words as I might tell somebody. Cause I'm good at using 10 words when 2 would suffice, but they'll let you know when something's not right. And then, you kind of figure it out and there you go.
Yeah. It was just a little off and you notice that. And so I think for anybody who exercises with their dogs or dogs in general, next I want to talk to you about is nutrition for Baily. I'm sure running all those miles may require some extra nutrition or vitamins. Is there anything special you do?
Nothing particular, really, to be quite honest, other than just obviously keeping an eye on eating enough, but not eating too much. Trying not to let her get a little bit overweight, which, not that she's ever been really overweight, but there's been times when, especially when like our old dog Tank, had a tumor in his mouth in the later years and would eat, but struggle. And so, sometimes she would sneak a little extra from Tank's bowl when he had given up for the night and she wanted to clean things up. And so there was a little bit of maybe not yo-yoing, but she was getting more than we thought, or than I was, again, bad owner, not paying as good of attention as I should have in picking the bowl up. But yeah, I mean, really just having I don't know that it's the best kibble out there, but trying to get a decent quality food. And then just making sure that she's getting enough, but that she's not putting on too many pounds and just trying to keep an eyeball on that. But yeah, other than that, I mean, we haven't thankfully had any issues or any needs to add any supplements or add anything along the way. But again, be aware and always kind of making sure that things are going well. And if we need to, we certainly would. But yeah. I don't have anything great to add there other than thankfully I've had a healthy dog. So we'll take it.
So she's not a grazer.
No. I mean, she would be. She's a counter grazer if we're not careful. She'll get on the counter and help herself.
She does that counter surfing.
If there's food, she's eating it. Whether it's her food, whether it's our food, whether it's the other dog's food, which if it's out there, she'll take it. So just she gets her food when it's her time, and she knows. Just like any dog, they get on their routine and they know, and it's time to eat. After we put our daughter to bed, like she'll be upstairs and we'll be reading stories. And as soon as we start saying goodnight, she just tears down the stairs and she's sitting there by her bowl, just waiting, waiting. She's ready. And then and then you make the jokes of like, it's not going anywhere. You don't have to scarf it all down, but she does. So.
Yeah, she has a routine. She knows her routine.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
important for dogs is having that routine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, I've heard people say before that dogs are like, about 2-year-old or two or 3-year-old kids. And it's the same thing as we just have the one human child that she's 7 now, or going to be 7. She's going to be 8. Goodness gracious, she's getting old. But anyway, same thing. She has her routine, and the dog has its routine, and her, I have my routine. Like I am a routine person, and I guess that plays out with the dogs and my child as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's fun that you have that routine with her. So you feed her once a day, twice
Once
a
a day.
day,
Yep.
once a day in the evenings, and then so she's ready to go in the morning.
Yep. Yep. Get her dinner, and then take her out for a walk, and then she's pretty much ready to curl up on the couch. Or if it's a lucky night, she gets to go and sleep with my daughter. Basically on a not school night. School nights, we got to make sure that my daughter doesn't get interrupted by the dog in the middle of the evening.
Yeah.
But on the weekends she can sleep. They have a little sister slumber party.
Oh.
But yeah, then up in the morning, out for a run, does her stuff at the beginning of the run, and then we just settle in and cruise for the rest of the time.
And so your other dog, Tank, is it Tank?
Yep.
Is he still alive?
No, he passed a couple years ago.
And so how did that relationship of the dog that's out running with mom and dad and the dog who is staying at home, probably glad they're not running, but Baily's getting more attention?
Tank was he was probably the ideal first dog. And not that he was like my first dog, but again, he was like the first dog that was actually mine. But he was definitely my wife. My wife didn't have dogs as a kid, so he was her first dog. And he was just so chill, so laid back. He didn't care. Like, you took care of him, of course. And if he needed something, he'd let you know. But outside of that, like, oh, there's another dog here. That's fine. Oh, there's this crying little infant thing, human, maybe. That's fine. Like, like he would just go with the flow. And so, I think that adding the second dog to our little household, was just more of a like, oh, okay. Like there's this other thing that's going to bother me once in a while, but like, whatever. She can bother me. I'm whatever. He had her outweighed by, about twice as much. So, there was nothing that she was going to do that was going to bother him other than, as far as hurting him. And he was just so, and obviously I've got rose colored glasses on. He was my dog, but I mean, just the biggest teddy bear to other dogs, to other people. To any animal, just was relaxed. So he didn't bat an eye. We brought another dog home. Yeah, all right, whatever.
And it was good that you were able to take him to the shelter to meet Baily before you brought him home. And it's just sometimes, is it this? People ask me this from time to time, like, all your pets get along at home, and I say, well, sure they do. How? And I'm like, I can't put my finger on it, but the rule is they're going to get along. Was there for you something you did that you could put your finger on?
I mean, maybe like I was a big fan of, Cesar Millan and the Dog Whisperer program back when that was on. And so I one of the things that I remembered him saying both in his books and on the television program was, when you're introducing a new dog, like, take them for a walk. Right? So they're walking together and it's not that confrontational thing right away. And I know that we did that at the shelter when they first met. And then we did that when we got home too. It's just take them for a walk. And again, being in Central Florida, and we adopted Baily at the end of June. So it didn't take a big walk at the end of June in Florida for it to be hot and them to both be panting and tired. And so you come back in the house, they're both panting and tired. They're laying down on the cold tile floor because that's colder than laying on the carpet or anything like that, to try to cool themselves. And so I think maybe that helped to kind of just take the edge off. And then, again, you're treating them both, at least for me, like, just because Tank's been here longer doesn't mean that he's the favorite. And just because Baily's the new one doesn't mean that she's the favorite. Like, they're both dogs. They're both part of our family, but they're both, below me and my wife in the hierarchy. So just kind of treated them as such. And, there was Baily's definitely higher strung. Tank was very much, not. So there were a couple of times that she would get a little snippy with him, but then, it's just, again, it's, being parent, being the leader, not dominating, but no, that's not acceptable. And Tank was, all right, whatever, I'm cool, like, no big deal. And so then and it happened a few times and nothing major. But then she just kind of settled in that like, all right, this is what's allowed, this is what's not, and been good to go.
Because I think it's important for anybody else who's thinking, well, I have a dog that I can't run and I may want to get a dog that I can run with, that it can work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And yeah, and I think introducing them that way it's really smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
It'll be interesting when the next dog comes, because we're kind of at that, like I said, I mean, I've always had dogs, and having two dogs was maybe twice as much of a pain in the tuchus sometimes, but twice as much fun as having just one. And so we're kind of at that point of, not in the coming weeks, but probably, certainly in the next year, of adding another dog back to the mix, and kind of, like, I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it while we were talking officially or before we got started, but Baily's getting to the point where, like, her best running days are behind her. Yeah. And so, and I'm at the point where, like, I love running with a dog. So probably the next dog needs to be a runner too.
Yeah.
And then it'll be interesting how that dynamic plays out when I'm going out with a new dog, and hopefully my wife will go out with Baily, but like, Baily's not going to be running as much, and it'll be good for her, but it's dog brain. She's not going to figure that out. And so it'll be an interesting dynamic in the next, coming months, when that all comes into play and plays itself out.
And so Baily is probably transitioning into being a senior dog. You said she's 9?
Yeah, 9.5. So yeah, she's getting up there.
Yeah, so she is a senior dog, and that type of a dog, their lifespan is probably like 12, 13, 15 years.
Yeah, that's kind of, I've figured if we can probably get to 12, and anything over that would be
it's gravy,
be the icing on the cake. Yeah. So and I mean, she's healthy, so we got a good chance, but at the same time, I mean, as anybody who knows that dogs or humans, you get to a certain point and it can go downhill relatively quick. Yeah. So hopefully not anytime soon, but yeah, I my wife and I have been having, again, like, we've had these conversations of just like, when we get back from when Baily and I get back from a run, like, she's a lot more worn out than she used to be. It used to be like an hour of sleeping on the couch, and then she was back. Now it's like all day of sleep, which is fine and great. A tired dog is a dog that doesn't get into trouble. Yes. But at the same time, you can just tell that, like, I used to be able to do workouts with her, and now it's just easy running. If I'm doing a workout, she's got to run with my wife or stay home that day or whatever. And so it's just, like, it's getting to that point where, all right, well, what kind of dog, and how old are we going to start with? Because, you got to make sure they're old enough to run, so that their bones have set and joints have set and all that kind of good stuff. But kind of have my eyes on maybe like a Weimaraner for the next one. We'll see. Or
Rhodesian. Rhodesian.
It's a possibility as well.
I have some clients who had 2 Rhodesians. Unbelievable running dogs, and they are runners. They love them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, to have a dog running, they have to be full grown, or at least way at the end of their puppyhood, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's something that again, when we got Baily, that was part of what we were looking at. And when we got Tank, we got him as a puppy at like 8 weeks old, which was fine. Like, he wasn't set to be a running dog or anything like that. But I remember, doing my research on American Bulldogs, and it was just like, their joints aren't fully set until at least a year and a half, probably closer to 2 years. So restrain, they're going to be puppies, but not be crazy and not really work them too hard. And so I kind of had that in the back of my mind with other dogs, and as we were getting into getting Baily, and like I said, she was about a year and a half when we got her, but at that, different breeds, obviously everything's a little bit different, much closer to full grown at that time. So it wasn't, like I said, thankfully we haven't had any issues, and everything worked out well. But yeah, certainly, when I talk to, me talking to runners a lot of times, and coaching runners, every once in a while I'll get a client or just somebody that I talk to on my podcast. It's like, oh yeah, I got this dog. I can't wait to start running with him. I got a golden retriever puppy. I'm like, that's awesome, but be patient. Like, you got to wait for that dog to get fully grown, fully developed. Or else you're playing with fire trying to run with that dog, especially running. One thing if you're playing in the yard, but running miles on the sidewalk, you gotta tap the brakes a little bit, let that dog get adjusted, grown, bones set, all that kind of good stuff, muscle development, or else, you're really taking the health in jeopardy.
Yeah, because then they really will have a life that is as a good runner. And now that Baily is transitioning into being a senior dog, you've seen some of those changes where it takes her longer to recover. And you're thinking about getting somebody who can run with you, and you've made that transition before. And maybe Baily, you said, will be your wife's dog to run with.
Yeah. Like they would be, and they do run sometimes now anyway. Like I said, on the weekends, and if I'm doing a certain workout where I'm like, hey, can you take the dog today? And she's like, oh yeah, absolutely, no problem. They're a good match right now in terms of pace and distance. I do 6 miles most days with Baily, and that's probably right about at her limit now. If I rewind the clock 4 or 5 or 6 years ago, we did some runs that were 14, 15, 16 miles, and she was, I mean, easily could have kept going, but I couldn't go any farther on those days. But her half marathon and beyond days are definitely, she could probably still do it, but she'd be paying for it, and we don't want to put her in that situation. So those days are probably done for her.
Yeah, she's probably more a walker, a stroller.
Oh yeah, I mean she could walk that easily, but running it probably too much. But you know, she can get her 5 or 6 miles in a day right now, still okay, but you know, probably won't be too much longer where, you know, going 2 or 3 with my wife would be the smarter option in terms of protecting her from herself, as opposed to letting her do too much and get herself in trouble.
And do you think, for the type of a dog that Baily is, that, you know, over the years of her having that exercise, having that outlet, do you think it makes her more calm and balanced and more bonded to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think sometimes it frustrates my wife. Maybe not frustrates, that might be a strong term, but there's no doubt whose dog it is. And I think that a big part of that is, you know, is all the miles spent running, and even just, you know, the time spent like walking. Like for the most part, I mean, that's not that it's been a conscious decision that walking the dog or the dogs has been my job, but like it's kind of been my thing more often than not. So, you know, just being on the other end of the leash all the time, it certainly has helped with the bonding process. But yeah, you know, as far as behavior and just her mentality and her outlook, you know, I mean, she's whatever her actual breed makeup is. I mean, she's definitely a working dog, and you know, we live in suburbia, and if it wasn't for the runs, there's a decent chance that she wouldn't be getting as much exercise as she wants. And then anybody who has dogs that don't get enough exercise and have that energy that's pent up knows that results in couches destroyed or furniture to chewed on, or whatever issues that you have. And not saying that she's been a perfect dog, because, you know, she's a dog, but you know, we really haven't had things that have gone, we haven't had anywhere near the issues that I could see us having with her, especially if that physical outlet and even the mental side too, right? Because I'm sure, you know, when you walk a dog, like there's commands that are going on and there's mental training that goes on there too. And we've certainly developed that as a running duo, that, you know, like there's obedience training, there's stuff that goes on during the runs that gets some of the mental energy plus the physical energy release as well.
Yeah, because they're paying attention to you, and whether, you know, sometimes you don't always know it. I know with one of my other big dogs, I didn't know we had a shorthand, but we had a shorthand because I was doing it, and I realized it on the walk one day, you know, that there were some movements I could do and she would know to go the other way. And, and so, does she listen to you? Do you have that? I mean, does it transition to the home?
Yeah. She listens, I think, better on the run. Maybe she's more focused because we're moving and whatnot. But yeah, she's one of those dogs that's smart enough that gets themselves in trouble if you're not proactive enough to keep her from getting herself in trouble. But yeah, I mean, she listens pretty well. But again, way better when we're running, you know, and you talk about shorthand. I mean, you know, I don't know how many dogs know left and right. And I don't know that she knows left and right on her own, but when we're running, you know, left, right, like that works. Sidewalk and street, you know, like if we're in the street and there's a car coming, sidewalk, and boom, we're like, she just goes, like we're up on the sidewalk now. So yeah, I mean, there's been some communication lessons that have been learned, and of course repetition too, right? With a dog or with anybody, you know, repetition makes things happen to the point where now, when we're running in the neighborhood and it's pretty much the same route every day, like I really don't even have to say anything, because she knows that at this driveway we get up on the sidewalk, and at this driveway we get back down on the street, and you know, she's going to need to hold it until we get to this point, because that's just kind of where we stop every day. Like, not that she needs to, but that's just where we stop every day. So she doesn't have to worry about when I'm like, oh, I just have to get to this corner and we're going to get up on the sidewalk and there's grass right there and I'm going to be able to go, and it's all good.
Yeah, because that is a part of of dogs. And so what what are some tips you would give to anybody who wants a running dog, wants a dog as a running partner? Uh, what is something that you didn't know going into it?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think maybe kind of even just to what we were just saying, but to work on some of those directional commands, um, as far as straight, left, right for when we're turning, because again in our neighborhood, I'm very comfortable and feel very safe running in the street. But there's the different intersections of the different side streets and whatnot. And even though we have our pretty regular pattern, and she knows that most of the time we're going to turn this way, on every once in a while I'll throw a curveball at her, but really for me to keep me from getting as bored. Yeah. But we'll do a different route, or we'll turn here instead of there, and we're gonna loop back somehow. And she kind of looks at me like, "Wait, did you really just say straight? Like, we're not turning here? Like, no, straight." And so she's, all right, well, head down and keeps going straight. So just some of those types of things to just kind of help. Like I said, sometimes hey, street. Like, or really more sidewalk, because we'll be in the street. And all of a sudden, here comes a car ripping around not ripping around, but coming around a corner, and there's not a lot of room, and so we don't have to argue, or I don't have to try to drag her. Like, I say sidewalk, and she goes, and then I can go, and neither of us are then in the street. So some of those safety commands, just stop, or so that she stops, or when we do a little bit faster stuff, she knows if I say let's go, like we're not just running it, like we're going a little bit faster. And you can, it's rewarding maybe, or I don't know if it's not funny, but it's noticeable when I say that before I even start running any faster, she's already pulling ahead a little bit. She just knows. So, just like training your dog for commands in the house, or commands in the obedience ring or whatever, get those 1 or 2 or 5 commands, be consistent with them, use them all the time, whether you need them or not, so they become automatic for the dog. And it just makes life so much easier when you can say, when I see somebody else running with their dog, and all right, left, and we just veer to the left side of the road, or right, and we veer to the right side of the road so that there's plenty of space. And, and just some of those types of things that I don't think I ever really learned, to just kind of picked up, but definitely will be, again, part of whenever the next dog comes. Day one, we'll be working on street and sidewalk and left and right and straight, because I've seen how much of a difference that's made over the years with Baily.
Yeah, it sounds like it lets you each have your own run. Because I know with my dogs, I don't like telling them what to do constantly. I like my few commands so that I can have my walk and they can do their thing.
Yep.
One thing I didn't touch on, and back to where I talked about feeding, but do you carry water with you for Baily, or do you have stops along the way? And what are your recommendations for that?
Yeah, it depends on the situation. So when we're running just through our neighborhood, I don't really carry any water, because we've done it so many times that and because it's not, in the hot part of the day. Like she gets water before we go out, and make sure she has plenty of chance to get a drink in the morning, when I'm getting my shoes and stuff on. And then we go out, and then of course when we get home, she's ready for more water, so she gets more water there. Back when we used to run longer distances, that was definitely always a consideration. So our town, thankfully is very runner friendly, and also there's plenty of places where it's very dog friendly. So a lot of the public water fountains have the little doggy water fountain as well. So we'd make sure to, I'd make sure to plan my routes so that we'd pass at least a few of those. And anytime we'd pass one, we'd stop and she'd have the opportunity. There may have been a few times that we would pass just a human-sized drinking fountain, and we'll hit that button and, kind of pick her up on her back leg so she can get up there and get a drink that way as well. And I've never really done it, but I know that just because we haven't run that much distance and time on the trails, but I know that there are companies that make, little collapsible dog bowls that you can easily stick in a pocket or stick in a dog vest if your dog runs with a vest, or if you run with a vest for your own water. So you can bring a little collapsible bowl out there. I feel like it's part of being a responsible dog owner and a responsible dog runner, is that you can't deny them water any more than you would deny yourself water. Yeah. So making sure that that's something that's available. And again, of course, knowing dogs, like they don't perspire like we do. So that's a big part of how they stay cool, especially in the warmer months of the year. So making sure that that's at least not even in the back of your mind, like maybe at least in the middle, probably the forefront of your mind when you're running with your dog, of, how long are we going to go? Do we need to stop for water? Do I need to bring water? And I mean, there's been times when I have had my water bottle and I don't have a bowl with me, but whatever, we'll dribble it out, and she can kind of, suckle off the tip of the water bottle, because that's more important to me, that, I'm going to get a little bit of dog germ in my mouth, but that's whatever. I get that anyway. But that way she's at least getting some water, if we're running somewhere where there's, hasn't been options for her to stop and get a drink some other way.
Yeah, I think those collapsible bowls are really good for, like, if you're going to be on a trail, you're going to be gone for a while, and and your water bottle that you bring with you for yourself. I have before tipped my water bottle and let my dog drink from it.
Oh yeah, I've done it, like running with in my in-laws' house, where running again, kind of a little bit suburbia, but I don't know if there's water bottles or water stops or things like that for us. So it's just like, I've got my water bottle, and we'll share. We're on the level where we can share a water bottle. It'll be okay.
We're family.
Yeah.
I used to walk home from a Starbucks. I'd have my sister drop us off in the morning. We'd walk them. I'd get a glass of water for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I would carry that along the route home, and they knew that I was going to ask for my cup of water. And that was what we would do. And they, there was a joke around my house that they preferred the triple filtered ice water from Starbucks.
That water was better than what came out of the tap, eh?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, yeah. And I love it. I think it's, it's refreshing water. And, so I think that's some great tips for people who love to run with their dog. Any last thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
I mean, I think that it's definitely for me been as
rewarding
and as hopefully positive a relationship for me personally than it probably has been for the dog. So, and again, whether it's running, hiking, walking, like, it's just such a great bonding time, and just such a great thing for my physical health and my mental health. And I can definitely tell that it plays out for the dog as well. So, whatever your level of exercise intensity or duration or whatever it might be, just like life is better shared with the dog, I think a good run is better shared with the dog. So give it a shot. And if you have any questions on it, obviously you can reach out to Christina, but you can also reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about it and not offer my professional advice on running with the dog, but offer my personal experience. And hopefully that can be helpful for you in some way as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have a lot of experience with it, and your vet has their opinion. The personal experience is awesome too. And your website is Diz Runs, Diz with a Z, to find him there. And also your running podcast. It's an awesome podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. It's something that I've kind of like figuring out how to run with my dog. I've kind of figured out how to podcast over the years. I don't know if I figured it out, but I've tried to figure it out and just kind of keep learning as I go, and having fun along the way.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being here today. I so appreciate your time.
Oh, well, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.